Hello, good morning, and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. Long enough to where I think dawn will come into play. I hear the birds chirping, singing. Let me update my description here. Stop it. I'm talking to the kid. Stop it. She is being crazy. Okay, I'm gonna have to redo this. Something went wrong. It's not letting me come out of that edit screen. All right, I had to restart it. It wouldn't let me come out of the edit screen. I think it's still broadcasting. All right, it's going crazy. Come on, sit down. I know you're having a hard time this week, but I have to do the show. Okay, I have two 40% alcohol, non-age stated Irish blended whiskeys. I assume they're both triple distilled, but this one doesn't say triple distilled, but it's saying traditional production method, so that usually is triple distilled. Kavanagh Finest Blended Irish Whiskey, 80 proof. Come on, focus, man. Come on, focus. I bought this at Trader Joe's. It was like $17.99, if I'm not mistaken. Just doesn't want to focus. There's also the there we go. Finally. There's also a single malt version. I think there's a single grain version where they take the components and sell them by themselves separately, But I tried one of those single grain Irish whiskeys, and it wasn't really very good. And I said to myself, I see why they blend them, because it makes a better product. I haven't tried a single malt Irish whiskey, so I can't make a comment on that. But the single grain one too, terrific. So that's Kavanagh. That's the concern. Now the product that's been competing against everyone the last week is Trader Joe's Special Reserve Irish whiskey. Now I know Trader Joe's was established in 1967, and the man that started the company, his name was Joe. And then they got bought. He was getting older, so he sold his company to Aldi. In fact, in 1979, I didn't realize Aldi had been in the U.S. since that long ago, but probably was small then. They're trying to become the big store chain now, grocery store chain. Green bottle helps protect it from the light. The clear bottle won't protect it from the light. Whiskey's not as sensitive as beer, however. Beer gets skunked really fast. Okay. Or at least real easily. Hold on. Calm down, kitten. Okay, that's very light. I noticed that about Trader Joe's. It doesn't appear that they're adding any coloring. It's very pale, very, very pale. You're suffering, aren't you? She goes by the window all week howling, crying. She's calling for other cats. I know what she's doing. And the veterinarian told me, watch out. She might start acting crazy. She's getting bigger. And if she starts doing that, that means she's in heat. So don't let her go outside. I don't let her go. She didn't go outside anyway. She doesn't want to go outside. That could change if some male cats show up. She might have an urge to go outside, but I'm not letting her go. And so next month, she's going to go in and have her surgery. Now I end that problem on it. Because you were really acting nutty. She's purring right now, but she's out of it. Okay. So the appearance, they're both very pale. So the appearance doesn't really matter. They're about the same. And I had a shocking experience with Teeling. You know, Teeling small batch, that's runs about 37 to $40. I got it on a great discount, $14.99, amazing price. But to not be able to tell Teeling from the Trader Joe's was a stunner. I could blame it on the cat for distracting me, and she certainly does do that. But I don't. That really wasn't the reason. I just couldn't tell them apart. All right. So I got the light lamps are turned off because I'm waiting for the daylight to come in, but it seems like it's being stubborn. It's so cloudy out there. I thought it was going to clear up. Well, AccuWeather hasn't been very accurate. They said it would get up to 66 yesterday. It barely made it past 60. It was going to get mostly sunny. Never happened. So I don't know. Boy, you are just, she's just really acting bad, acting crazy, you know, not bad. She can't help it, but she's, last night kept me awake for an hour, starting at midnight, at 12:30, 12:15. I said, you can't do this. She was just, wouldn't settle down, going by the window crying, running around, walking around the house, moaning, crying, woo. And finally, I fell asleep, and then she did get on the bed and sleep next to me, let me rest. So I didn't get up till about 2:40, which is late for me. I know that's extreme. Most people say that's pretty extreme. It is. But I went to sleep right when it got dark yesterday. I was tired because I didn't get enough sleep the night before. All right, well, let's try to do this. See what happens. She's all right. Mix them up good. Although I already don't remember which is which is a good thing. Now, Trader Joe's, their regular price is $14.99. I don't really think they run sales at Trader Joe's. I've never seen a sales tag. Maybe I'm wrong, but their stuff, they usually try to market pretty low. But $14.99 for Irish blended whiskey, that's low. That's the lowest price in the city of this metro area of New Orleans metropolitan area. I've never seen Irish whiskey lower than that. Well, I did one time. The local store here had patties for $9.99. Why is that? They're trying to get rid of it. Irish whiskey, well, it might be popular where you live. It's doesn't seem to be too popular around here. Yeah, Jameson is. Jameson, that's about it. Can't explain it. It's like Canadian whiskey. People buy it, you know. But obviously Crown Royal will be the number one brand, and it's not even close. They're so far ahead of the others. People buy Rich and Rare. Yes. They buy Canadian Limited. Yes. Caliber. I know that because Walmart always keeps it stocked, well stocked. Walmart doesn't keep stuff stocked. If it doesn't sell, it doesn't stay. That's one thing I'll give Walmart credit for. You rarely find an out-of-date beer at Walmart because it's going to get cut. Other stores, you better check because you might find artifacts, and their beers are almost like artifacts, historical artifacts. You know, I've had a lot of experiences like that at Total Wine and More. Not to single them out, but on the other hand, they seem to be the worst example of it, or one of the worst examples. And Winn-Dixie's kind of bad for that too, because I found Goose Island IPA the other day, $8.99 a six pack. I'm like, all right. I said, let me check the date though, and it was like early in 2025. I'm like, this thing's almost a year old. You cannot trust them. You say, well, the distributor is supposed to take care of that. Yeah, I know they're supposed to take care of that. They're supposed to go and check dates, but there it was. Bad date, and is on the shelf. I know Winn-Dixie's getting ready to close next month, so they probably don't even bother going and check over there, but it's still inexcusable. That's how they defend the three-tier system. Oh, we need the three-tier system because it'll ensure quality. Wrong. No, it helps ensure a monopoly, a monopolistic practice. we won't get into that. All right. Before Prohibition, did you know that beer companies and liquor companies could distribute directly to a store? In other words, Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch could go straight from the brewery to the store. And they actually had their own bars. They had Michelob barrooms that sold, obviously, only Michelob. That's not allowed anymore in the United States. Illegal. They have these brew pubs where they have a pub at the brewery, but they can't set up like Abita breweries all around the state. I mean, Abita bars all around the state. Sorry. They have 2 breweries in New Orleans and the big one in Abita Springs / Covington. So anyway, in England, they do have those kind of, they call them tied pubs, tied to the brewery, where it's like the brewery has its own public houses, pub means public house, lounge, barroom. And I support that because I support free enterprise. Not that the United Kingdom is a good example of free enterprise, because they're not, but that's one example within that kingdom. But okay, aroma, not a lot happening. Almost like smokiness, but that's not possible. Yeah, go up there and lay down if you want to, or do something. Yeah, it's just a faint whiff of whiskey. That's it. Not trying to be cheeky or smart aleck in any way, but that is what I'm getting. All right, let's go with the taste. Some of these whiskeys, I noticed some of these whiskeys don't have a whole lot of aroma character. They don't have much happening on the nose. Then when you taste them, it's like, oh yeah, it's really great. And then on the other hand, some of them are aromatic, but then the flavor falls short. Especially, you get that with beer a lot. These beers, peanut butter flavored beer, and you smell it, it's like, wow, peanuts. It's like open a bag of peanuts, and then you taste it, and then it falls flat. Especially with those flavored beers. They'll have it, then the flavor won't match up. That's my experience. Okay, not with all, but with many. Sweet cream. It's like sugar cream, like that they put in the middle of the Cadbury chocolate egg. It's sugar. It's just cane sugar, but they make it like not really a cream. It's almost like wet sand. They call it fondant, like wet sand. It's granulized, just a very tiny amount. You know, sand is at the beach. But so it's kind of has that flavor. And I know they use fondant in a lot of pastries and so forth. All right. Not so much sugar cream here, but more oak. More oak. Now, why does Teeling make Kavanagh when they have their own brand, Teeling? And they definitely don't list this on their website. Look, I don't know why they make it. Obviously, they make it so somebody will buy it, but could it be tied to Total Wine and More? Is it a Total Wine and More brand? Maybe. But then I have seen it at other stores. Not often, but I have run across it. Or as some people say, across it. That always drives me nuts when people say, she lives across the street. I say, there's no T in that word. I say that to myself. Or they'll say Massachusetts. So, no, there's no T in that part of the word. It's not Massachusetts. Let's practice. Massachusetts. All right. No, I mean, all right. Anyway, but it's funny. Oh, I feel that in my stomach. But is that the serrano pepper in my stomach? Because I cook grits with some corned beef in it for the meat. I only put the meat on for 2 minutes. The grits I had to go 5 for them to get cooked because I use raw grits. White hominy this time, and the yellow tastes the same, different color. But I cut up an entire serrano pepper and some diced onions, some hot pepper, hot sauce, black pepper, of course salt to give it some saltiness, a little garlic powder, and then I put that Swiss cheese in it, let it melt inside it. It was very good, but boy, it was hot. Whoa. Those serrano peppers are fiery. That's about as hot as I like to go. But other people love, extreme heat. I like hot food now, I ain't gonna lie, but not extreme. But the serrano pepper, ooh, a store had them on sale, $1.10 for a whole tray of them. It's probably 20 peppers on there. I know they'll go bad before I finish them, but I've been using one at a time. And it was making my nose, I had to keep blowing my nose because of all the pepper. That'll clear your nose out. That'll clear your sinuses if you eat the serrano pepper in there. But nice, good. I'm tasting a little oak now. Now they're both medium bodied with a dry finish. You say that every time. Yeah, because you ever notice that 99% of the whiskeys you try are medium bodied and have a dry finish? You ever notice it? Medium body. You say, what about beer? You say that with beer. You ever notice that most beers have a medium body and a dry finish? If they have a sweet finish, then it's like, ugh, it's like, it's too sweet. You call it cloying. It's like so sweet it makes you ill. You have some failed beers that'll come across like that. It's rare. It's rare. Are there some heavy body beers? There are, yes. Not too many. Even the stouts these days not that heavy. They're more thin, really. More like porters, but they call them stouts. But yeah, they got thin body beers like Michelob Ultra, for instance, Corona Light, Bud Light, Pabst Light. They're light body. They're thin. They call them light beers. It sounds better than calling it a thin beer. All right. That's not good marketing. Say, buy this new thin beer. We make it thin by adding water to it. Don't you love watery beer? No, that's not gonna capture people's attention. You say, no, it tastes great. It's less filling. That's how you market. Tastes great, less filling. Irish whiskey, what do they promote? Heritage, the Emerald Isle, Old Ireland, where your ancestors came from Ireland. And many of mine did. My great grandmother's name was Isabel Ryan. The Ryans, R-Y-A-N, Ryans. There's an Irish cream liqueur, Irish style cream liqueur called Ryans. They came from Ireland. And but I think they were Scotch Irish. You say, oh, the Protestants. Yes, they were. But that's, so that's what they promote, the heritage. Like German beer is always about the heritage, the old, they'll show an old castle, an old brewery, an old convent or monastery and things such as that. Because they have the heritage to go along with it. Anheuser-Busch kind of focuses on that with many of their products. 150 years since Budweiser was started. And that's good. But now, a lot of the craft breweries don't have a heritage, really. What they're going to say, look at this old building from 1999. It's 27 years old. That's not going to really go. So now they use funny animals and cartoons, and sometimes they want to be symbolic or have something about the devil. We're evil. It's like pretend evil, because I'm like, nah, you're not really evil. I mean, you're evil and you're stupid. But you're not going to put true evil on the label, because you'll be banned and you'll be out of business in about a week. So they are politically correct evil is what I call it, you see. But they'll try to fool you, like we're edgy. It's like, nah, you're not edgy. I got some flags that in my mind, I have some flags you can put on your can. Let's see how edgy you are. Nah, they don't want to go out of business. They'll use a hammer and sickle, though. That's for whatever reason, there's certain forms of totalitarianism that get a pass. Hammer and sickle, that's okay. I mean, all right, 80 million people killed by them, but that's okay. All fun and games. It's comical. No one's offended. But some other symbols, oh no, you could shut down the brewery because it will be out of business very quickly. And of course, on this channel, support any totalitarian government. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we don't think, we meaning me, I don't think it's cute to have hammer and sickle, and I don't think it's cute to have, it's not funny Soviet socialism is not funny. Ask the people in the Czech Republic about 1968, and they'll tell you how funny that was. Ask the Hungarian people about 1956, and they'll talk about how funny that was. See if they find it comical. But National Socialism not funny either. We all know about that. And well, any kind of it, of these bad aberrant ideas. So not funny. So so if you were really edgy, you'd be talking about Reign of Terror beer with Robespierre or something. Well, they probably got some out there doing that. Like, that's funny, Yeah, real funny. Like, funny how? Anyway, getting off of that, but I think I'm right. But now some people will use that argument and they'll say, well, my flag is about heritage, not hate. Okay, but what if your heritage is bad? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not really a good argument because it could be bad heritage, like dropping an atomic bomb. That's heritage. That's history. It happened, but wouldn't really want to celebrate that. Dropping an atomic bomb on the civilians. That's not really something you'd want to brag on or even celebrate, or you might be ashamed of it. Okay. I mean, I'm not ashamed of it. I had no part of it. It's a shameful thing, but I wasn't involved with it because actually I wasn't born. Okay. But you get the point. Hopefully, thinking people would get the point. If you're blockheaded, you won't. Some people are blockheaded. All right. This one does have a little bit of a papery note. That's always a bad sign from what I've heard. Not that I want to drink paper. I guess that is a bad sign. But that's a little odd. Ultimately, they both have nice labels. Although the Kavanagh does look a little store brandy-ish, like a little bit of a store brand. I don't know why, it just does. But I don't think it actually technically is. But it's decent looking. And each variant has a different color, like purple for the triple distilled. Well, they're alluding to that at least. Then there's another color for the single malt, another color for the single grain, and so forth. Trader Joe's, well, it is a store brand, so that would make sense if it looked like a store brand. It is literally a private label product. Trader Joe's, that's how they got their name for doing private label. You say, what about Aldi? Yeah, same thing. Okay. And that's it. That's fine. We don't take issue with that. I don't see where that's a problem. Some people got to hang up on it. I think this one's a little bit better, has a little bit more niceness to it. Although ultimately they're very close, very close. There isn't much difference between the two. They got the same specs, no age statement, triple distilled, or at least it seems to be on the Kavanagh side. Inexpensive. But I got to give the win to Trader Joe's because it's $14.99. You can save $3 a bottle, or $4 even, but why not save the $3? And you're getting a better product, in my opinion. I'm right. This is the Trader Joe's. Actually, it's the Kavanagh. Okay, that's 2 losses in a row. Not happy. I'm not crushed about it. I'm not dismayed because overall, what did I say early in the series when I did my first taste challenges? I said the same thing. I kept repeating it in subsequent videos. I said Trader Joe's Special Reserve, and it is a special reserve because it's reserved for Trader Joe's, doesn't taste that much different than all the rest. It just doesn't. Is it similar to Jameson? Yeah. Are they trying to go after the Jameson flavor? Obviously, that's obvious. What's the #1 Irish whiskey brand in the world? Jameson. Right? So you make a private label Irish whiskey. Naturally, you would try to replicate Jameson as best you can. So then it's gonna, and if you can do that, which I think they did largely, then you're gonna match up with all the rest, because all the rest are kind of like that same thing. The Bushmills, the Paddies, the Tullamore DEW. Now, or as people call it, Tullamore Dew, but it's DEW, Daniel E. Williams. Now, do they taste exactly like Jameson? No. But do they sort of, or are they sort of oriented toward the Jameson flavor? I would say clearly they are, because Jameson is the lead product. You say, well, Canadian whiskeys do the same thing. They try to like get in that template of Crown Royal. Certainly they do. They don't all make it. And some give up and don't try. Rich and rare. That's why it's Canadian whiskey with natural flavors. But on the other hand, to be fair, Jameson could have natural flavors added, and they don't, not Jameson. Crown Royal could have natural flavors added, and they don't have to put that on the label. That's not a requirement in Canada. They're allowed to have natural flavoring, not required to put it on the label. If they want to put it on a label, like Caliber does, Rich and Rare, Canadian Limited, some others, I can't think of them at the moment. They're allowed to do that. They can do it, but it's a choice. It's not a requirement. And Sazerac, who owns the 3 brands I just named, they tend to let you know. If they're putting flavoring, they'll let you know. Now, if you get Rich and Rare Reserve, it does not indicate Canadian whiskey with natural flavoring, which is telling me it does not have it when I, considering the practice of the company. But it is possible that Jameson, keep saying it because that's what I'm working on, Irish whiskey, but it is possible that Crown Royal could have natural flavoring. I've never asked the company. I could, but yeah, that's a special type of whiskey. Canadian whiskey is unique in the sense that they're allowed to add flavoring. And they do it a lot of times. And if you taste that 40 Creek Niagara whiskey, taste that product. You tell me, you're going to tell me they don't have flavoring added? That thing tastes like maple syrup, which I like maple syrup, so it doesn't bother me. But I've never written an email to them and asked them, do they add flavoring? Portal says, morning, Jay. Was just watching your review with George on Captain Morgan's sliced jalapeno. Yeah. He was more favorable toward the Captain Morgan series than I was. He was like, yeah, it's pretty good, but I thought that it had too much tap water flavor. He didn't notice that. He didn't make that comment. He didn't notice that. But I was real sensitive to that because I do drink tap water. I'll admit it. So I said, When I went to Puerto Rico, I drank the tap water. Never got sick. Went to Spain, drank the tap water. Never got sick. Went to Spanish Africa, drank the tap water. Never got sick. Costa Rica, drank the tap water the whole time. People tell me, oh, no, don't drink water in Central America. I never got sick. Mexico, I wasn't dumb enough to do that. In Mexico, I was like, nope, no, thank you. Bottled water or nothing, or bottled beer or nothing. In Mexico, they say don't even drink a cocktail with ice because the ice is from the tap. My grandfather went down there one time and he was like, oh, that's all just a legend. He told me I drank the water and he was sick the whole trip. He said his trip was ruined. I said, well, Moctezuma's revenge, So, but yeah, generally I had been to all 50 states, drank the tap water, never had a problem. Canada, same story. Been to half the Canadian provinces. I haven't been to all, been to half. Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, Quebec province, Ontario, and what's the one I'm missing? New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, Ontario, Quebec. Yeah, I've never been to Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, named after a princess, Alberta. British Columbia, or Newfoundland, which was actually a British colony that became part of Canada. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that Newfoundland was never, and Newfoundland and Labrador was never part of Canada. It was next to Canada, but it was a separate colony. And it was the only British colony that I'm aware of that ever asked to become a colony again. In other words, they were given dominion status, which means almost completely independent, self-governing, almost 99% independent. Of course, there's that 1% holdback. But anyway, like Canada until 1982. Not completely independent until 82. But another story. But Newfoundland went bankrupt during the Great Depression, and they said, oh, they asked the British government, would it be okay if we became a colony again? Because we can't pay for anything. They're like, well, okay. They really weren't enthusiastic about it. They're like, all right, fine. So it became a colony again, or as they call it today, as overseas territory. And then finally, they just said, look, you want to become independent again, or mostly independent, or do you want to become, what do you want to do? 1949, it's about time to make a decision. It can't just keep it in this suspension period. So they said, well, half the people said, let's become part of Canada. The other half were saying, no, we don't want to let's become our own country and everything. And then they said, well, we don't have any population hardly. We can't really do that. And they said, well, just make a decision because this needs to be resolved. So they had an election in it just by a little bit, 52 to 48, I think it was. It was probably less than that. They voted to become part of Canada, which was easy to do. They just changed the statute, say, okay, now from this date forward, Newfoundland will become part of Canada, a province, because it was the same king, King George VI. So they didn't have to change. Really was no change in government, so to speak. Like there was talk years ago. I remember years ago, there was talk about making the Turks and Caicos Islands part of Canada. That Canada could have a Caribbean territory. Because a lot of Canadians go there for vacation and so forth, all part of the Commonwealth. Canada being a realm with King Charles III as the king, and then became Turks and Caicos Islands still a British territory. They said no, but Canada was like, nah, that doesn't seem like a good idea to us for some reason. So that didn't pan out. But it could, and they wouldn't have to do anything special to change the law or to change the the status. They simply passed a law saying from this date forward, the Turks and Caicos Islands would be a Canadian territory. That was all they have to do. But they're not going to do it. Okay, now I don't want President Trump to hear that because he would think it could be a U.S. territory. All right, how's the Kavanagh? Oh, I skipped a comment. I've only ever tried the rum and Coke from Captain Morgan. It was pretty good. Yeah, so I've never had rum and Coke, honestly. True story. I've had Captain Morgan white label rum. Now I have a huge bottle of Captain Morgan white label. I mean, a huge bottle, which I got for $14.99 after I sent in this. You had to send it in. A little piece of paper, a rebate card. Now they do that on purpose to make it tedious to do it. So they figure people are going to buy it for $19.99, which is still $10 less than today. And they're never going to do it. They're going to say, oh, I'll get to that later. And then they'll wait and it'll expire. But I said, I'm not going to be procrastinated about it. I'm going to take that. And when I get home, first thing I'm going to do, I didn't even put the bottle away. I sat down, I filled out the little form, which was aggravating. And then you had to take a highlighter. They said you have to highlight it or draw a circle around this part of it, or whatever. So I did it, put the receipt in the envelope, and mail it in. Couldn't do it online. That's what I'm saying. You do that on purpose so you don't send it in. I sent it in, and they said, wait 6 to 8 weeks. Well, it only took about 3 weeks. And then I got the rebate. So it was a $5 rebate minus the postage. And so I did it. And they still do that. Diageo still does that from time to about twice a year. They'll do that. They'll put little tags on the bottles. And they'll say, get this for It'll be really cheap. Like get 2 of these, but you got to buy like 2 bottles, any Diageo product. Get 2 of these with a mail-in rebate. And so you buy 2, you take the little piece of paper, and they figure you're never going to mail it in, which probably most people do not, because like they say on TV all the time, people got subscriptions online to stuff they haven't used a subscription in 5 years, and they're paying $25 a year. How could you be so detached from it? Okay, the Kavanagh is nice. The Kavanagh is very nice, but actually, I couldn't tell it apart from the Trader Joe's, so it's a wash. So if I can't tell them apart, the answer is simple. If I cannot tell 2 whiskeys apart, or beer or wine or whatever it is, common sense would dictate logically, you know what I'm saying? Logic will dictate that you go with the cheaper product, which in this case is Trader Joe's by $3 or $4. So the Trader Joe's actually wins, by not by taste, but by price. I love hearing history. It's very interesting. You are very knowledgeable, says Portable Porter. Well, I taught, that's why I retired. You know, I taught history, government, free enterprise, psychology for 14 years. Not my choice. I didn't want to teach it, but they made me do it. World history, American history, Louisiana history. I taught for high school and also Southern University in New Orleans and Southeastern Louisiana University, which they asked me to do it. I didn't apply. I never applied for a job. They just, Southeastern said, you want to teach classes? I said, well, yeah, sure, why not? I did that for 12 years. And then Southern University, New Orleans, same thing. You want to teach these classes? Well, yeah. So I did that for about 4 or 5 years until the school stopped. They went with a different university, which I thought was a terrible mistake. Turns out it was. But so I had to know about history. You know, you're teaching it, so you got to know about it, you know. Thumbs up, yeah. So that's a hobby of mine. That's a bigger hobby than the beer, wine, and liquor, the history. You know, when I was in high school, I always be going to the literary rally. I never won the state, but I won the regional. I always win the regional, you know. But do the projects. You know, they have the social studies fair where you make a project. And I always win first place in high school, and then I would get beat in the regional. I don't know who that was in the regional, but he was good. But maybe he had family connections. Wink, wink. But I did not. I remember I did a project on Cambodia in 1986. Won first place. And I'll start talking about Cambodia for like 1 minute, and the judge said, "Stop. I see you know a lot about it, and thank you." He didn't want to hear about it. But then I won first place. I could have talked for a long time, but he was like, "No, stop." I was like, I was insulted. I said, "Man, you know how much reading I did on this country?" I'm just saying it to myself. You know how much reading I did? You gonna stop me? But he didn't want to hear it. All right. Anyway, so yes, history and whiskey, beer, and wine is actually related. So that's what got me interested in beer, wine, and liquor, because there's a history behind it. The products, they're kind of similar, you know, so that's not really that interesting. Well, some people think it is. I just think, well, they kind of taste the same, but the history behind it is very interesting, fascinating in cases. That is awesome. Yes, thank you. So I like to study history, obviously. And I've done history videos. Did a video about World War I, World War II. I did a video about who was responsible for the First World War. That was a separate video. It was 3 parts because it was like an hour each. It was too long to make one video. You know, I was like, which country was most responsible for starting the war? And I went through the whole scenario. And I did all the other wars, you know, the Holy Roman War, which was like one of my top videos ever. And I did a video about nationalistic, what was it called? Nationalistic eruptions or whatever it was from a certain year up to 1914, how nationalism helped bring on the First World War, meaning different nations rising up against their occupiers, like the Slavs and the Polish people and the Czechs and the Slovaks and the Greeks and all of this. And it helped bring on wasn't the only reason, it was one of the main reasons, certainly wasn't the only reason. There was a lot of other reasons, but I went through that, and that took like about 4 videos. I'll have to look those videos up. Morning, Ron. To you, Joe Cup. All right, thanks everybody. I know it's a long video, but I'm always thinking about these things, so it drags out. World War II is my favorite history subject, says Portable Portal. I've done many videos on that. Like I did a video, what was Hitler's biggest mistake in World War II? Freezing rain and snow tomorrow sounds miserable. Going to do shopping and laundry today. Sounds smart. All right, well, y'all take care. You have many great history videos. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Did a lot of videos about the war between the states. In the United States, I think I did a video about the Commonwealth, the British Commonwealth, which you could go 10 hours on that. Take care. And the things that led up to the war. Oh, yeah. Like the 19th century nationalism, right. Went back even further than that. But yeah, definitely 19th century. That's very important to understand the world wars. Yes. A lot of people can tell you 1,000 facts about World War II. They could tell you, this division had that many troops and all, where they were positioned, but they don't seem to understand the war. They're like a reference book. They can tell you all day long facts about the war, but my question, do you understand the war? And many times I don't think they do. I don't think they do. And that's what I tried to do when I was teaching history. I said, we don't really need to know the dates too much, because you have to have a framework. You need to know when it happened, right? But you could look that up in a book, so that's not that important. Anybody could do that. I said, you need to understand what happened. That's what we would focus on. What happened and why did it happen? So that was the main thing we would focus on in history class. What happened and why? And so my students would always score very, very, very high on the state tests, because you have to take a state test to graduate. You have to have minimum knowledge about history to graduate. Not a lot of knowledge, just minimum, So I told the students, you'll have the minimum, but you'll have more than the minimum. That's very, okay. The Vietnam War is very interesting too. Yes, Gulf of Tonkin, etc. Yeah. All right. We can go on and on for 10 hours. Bye. Well, y'all take care now. Bye-bye, everybody. But remember, what happened? And more importantly, why did it happen? See you later. See you later, crocodile. After a while, alligator.